On to other news now. International Relations and Cooperation Minister Naledi Pandor is today hosting her Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. The two ministers will have political consultations in Pretoria. This as the war between Russia and Ukraine continues to intensify. Kyiv has also been receiving a lot of military aid from the West. We take you live now to those discussions between the two foreign ministers.
In Portugal, and that the meeting will build on the foundation already laid during numerous engagements between ourselves and our heads of state this year. We also will exchange views on how best we could work together to strengthen relations with South Africa, Ukraine, and the rest of the African continent. How we can use this bilateral relationship to build a greater African partnership. We are deeply concerned, Minister, about the continuing war between Russia and Ukraine, the continuing loss of lives, and the very, very worrying humanitarian situation. We are in discussion with our own leader, President Ramaphosa, to look at how we can have a greater impetus to the African Peace Initiative to address our concerns with respect to this war. As the African continent, we have ourselves been witness to numerous conflicts and have overcome many difficult wars. All conflict has devastating effects on countries involved in them. The effects are felt both politically as well as economically, and in terms of the development opportunities for often innocent citizens. As a continent, we continue to strive to build peace, to strive to work toward developing a culture of peaceful resolution of conflict and the promotion of the importance of diplomacy and peace as the route to resolving any dispute. That's why we as South Africa always encourage a process of peaceful resolution of conflicts on our continent and globally. We believe the only path to peace is through diplomacy, dialogue, and commitment to the principles of the United Nations Charter, including the principle that all member states shall settle their disputes by peaceful means. And many people forget this particular provision of the UN Charter. We are also deeply troubled by the tragedy unfolding in Palestine, and we urge the international community to be louder in voicing a call for a cessation of hostilities immediately. During his address to the General Assembly in September this year, President Ramaphosa expressed similar sentiments to the ones I've referred to when he said as follows: "From the experience of our own journey from apartheid to democracy, we value the importance of engaging all partners to conflicts to achieve peaceful, just, and enduring resolutions. It is these principles that inform South Africa's participation in the African Peace Initiative, which seeks a peaceful resolution of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In this conflict, as in all conflicts, we have insisted that the UN Charter's principle of respect for the territorial integrity of every country should be upheld. Our participation in the African Peace Initiative is informed by a desire to see an end to the suffering of those most directly affected by the conflict and the millions on our continent and across the world who, as a result of the conflict, are now vulnerable to worsening hunger and deprivation. As the international community, we must do everything within our means to enable meaningful dialogue, just as we should refrain from any actions that fuel the conflict. As we confront other conflicts in several parts of the world, including on our continent, Africa, It is vital that we invest in prevention and peace building. This was a quotation I extracted from his contribution at the General Assembly. Dear Minister, we're meeting at a time when the world is experiencing grave escalation of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. The carnage and senseless destruction of property, as well as the untold pain and suffering on all sides, should be condemned unreservedly. These events remind us of our own suffering at the hands of the apartheid machinery, and therefore we call for an immediate end of hostilities, unconditional provision of medical supplies, and humanitarian aid. It has thus become more urgent that the relevant UN resolutions and decisions are fully executed to ensure peaceful coexistence between Israel and Palestine for sustained peace. It is our belief, as President Mandela said, that the struggle of South Africa is not complete if the people of Palestine are not free. I look forward, Minister, to our engagement today, not only to review the status of our bilateral relations, but also to try and explore ways in which we can ensure that our cooperation increases in substance and diversity. May I then, having made these opening remarks and having welcomed you to our country, could I invite you, Minister, to present your opening remarks?
Minister Pandor, thank you very much for having me here today. I think you and I and our presidents set a very high threshold in the dynamics of bilateral dialogue between South Africa and Ukraine. It started with our first meeting in May in Portugal. It was followed by a visit of a group of African presidents led by President Ramaphosa to Ukraine. Phone conversations between our leaders and between ourselves have also taken place. And all of this led to my visit here to Pretoria. I'm happy to be the first Ukrainian foreign minister to visit South Africa since 1998. On the other hand, I am unhappy that the pause in high-level bilateral contacts between foreign ministers has taken so long. We should commit today never to allow this to happen again and to have regular political dialogue between our countries. We have a very meaningful program for today. As Minister rightly mentioned, we are discussing not only the bilateral relations between Ukraine and South Africa and the content that we can fill this relationship with. We're also talking about a larger regional perspective of African politics and development in Africa. And of course, no one in today's world exists in isolation. No peace, neither peace nor war exist in isolation in today's war. So while Ukraine has been suffering from the large-scale invasion by Russia since February 2022, we do observe and follow with utmost concern the crisis in the Middle East, and we wish peace to be restored, a just and lasting peace to be restored in the Middle East based on the principle of two-state solution. All of this is on the agenda today. We firmly believe that the deeper our contacts will be, the higher the level of trust between our nations will be, and there are all good reasons for that to happen, which will allow us to address the most sensitive issues in the bilateral and global agenda successfully and together. Be it the implementation of Ukraine's peace formula to end the war launched by Russia against Ukraine, be it cooperation in international organizations or development of trade and involvement of Ukrainian expertise in digitalization of government services or in the production of agricultural food products across Africa. All of this is at the table, and I'm looking forward to fruitful discussion and, as we diplomats like to say, result-oriented discussion. So thank you once again for your hospitality, and I'm sure that this is neither the beginning nor the end, but I think it's a very important step in our bilateral relations. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Minister. And thank you to the colleagues from the media. I'm sure I've never seen so many journalists and our reception of other foreign ministers. So you're obviously extremely popular in South Africa. Because we take no notice of this. But it's really very interesting in you. So thank you for bringing so many journalists to my department. I'm sure that we will enjoy and we'll see them in the thank you very much for
Well, let's come out of that, of course, where we are seeing the International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor in conversation there with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who is in the country, obviously wanting to strengthen relationships between Ukraine and South Africa. Of course, our very own DIRCO Minister Naledi Pandor there talking about what South Africa wants to see, not just as a peace resolution, certainly between Russia and Ukraine, but of course very difficult to have this discussion around global conflict without starting to raise the issue of Israel and Hamas, of course, and the tension and the violence that we are seeing in Palestine. Quoting former President Nelson Mandela there, the DIRCO minister did do, saying that for South Africa's freedom to be complete, the freedom of the people of Palestine is important. Those, of course, paraphrasing the words of Dr. Nelson Mandela is what essentially the DIRCO minister did do. Ukrainian Minister Dmytro Kuleba also speaking about how he is the first Ukrainian minister or foreign affairs minister to visit South Africa since 1998 rather, saying that the pause has been too long and asking for more political dialogue between Ukraine and South Africa, touching on the role, of course, that Ukraine, he says, has played not just in shaping South African politics and economics, but as well as its role having done so on the continent. Of course, the Minister Kuleba also talking about how since February 2022, of course, Ukraine has been dealing with that conflict between itself and Russia, but also really talking to the issue that even while this is happening, saying that Ukraine does watch with real concern over the situation in Gaza, asking for international bodies to step up their efforts to find peaceful resolutions in both wars and conflicts. All right, we'll keep you updated on that interaction between DIRCO Minister Naledi Pandor as well as Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. They are, of course, taking a Q&A at the moment in that press briefing between the two of them. But I imagine that a lot of the discussion as well is going to be around how it is that South Africa could possibly play an even deeper role in really starting to negotiate for a peaceful solution, not just in the Ukraine, but certainly in Gaza as well. Minister Kuleba also talking about how even as they have watched the Ukraine, having watched the crisis unfolding in Gaza, saying that they too are in support of a two-state resolution to the conflict between Hamas and Israel.